Well, with all the revelations coming out today and the different documents that have been released lately, there's got to be a spin on it, you know? That's the way it works. And so we're going to talk about the spin now on the Flynn case. Stick with me and I'll be right back. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and oh my goodness, I have been really researching my butt off today because there's so much out there and there's all these different people that are talking about the whole Flynn thing and the documents, and of course the document that was released today, which was this one right here. Yes, from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence to Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson, who have been tenacious in trying to get these different documents. And it's dated May 13th of 2020. And here it is. On May 8th, 2020, I declassified the enclosed document, which I am providing to you for your situational awareness. And this is signed by Grinnell. And so then we have this document here, which is from the National Security Agency. And of course, the head of that right now is Paul Nakasone. And so this is from him. And it is follow-up unmasking requests. And this has to do with, per your email request of 3 May 2020, I'm providing a revised list of identities of any officials who submitted requests to the National Security Agency at any point between the 8th of November 2016 and 31st of January 2017 to unmask the identity of former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael T. Flynn. And the original list was in alphabetical order. The revised list is in chronological order, including the date the request was received. So that's essentially what he was doing here, and he is releasing it then to these two senators and whoever they disseminate it to, because it's been declassified, it's ready to go out there. So there is a little bit of a redaction right here. Not sure what that is, but anyway. If you notice, this is a list of all the people and all the times they requested to have Flynn's name redacted. Now, the thing you got to note here, the Kislyak conversation took place, I believe, at the end of December. Oh, a little addition here, folks. I found this article after I did the recording of this video, so I'm kind of inserting this on the next day. And I wanted to show you this because this is a timeline put out by CBS News back in 2017. So let's look at this because I think there's an interesting little thing in here that might be something you want to know. Anyway, so here are the basic timeline things that we know about. But look what happened on December 4th. Flynn's son, Michael Flynn Jr., a transition staffer, tweeted on that gate. Yep. He did. And he was trying to point out that the Podesta emails may have a lot of clues, which we all know. And of course, CBS News has to say it was thoroughly debunked, but of course we know it wasn't debunked. This resulted in Flynn's son being forced to resign from Trump transition team over that gate. And then we go on to other things that happened. Just remember that was December 6th. And when you look at this document, a lot of the unmaskings happened from that time on. So could it be that this gate is the whole reason that they hated Flynn and they needed to get rid of him? Is this what they were so afraid Flynn would reveal? Because I was listening to Rush Limbaugh today, and he said that there was some reason they hated Flynn and they wanted to get rid of him. They were desperate. And he didn't know what it was, but I'm kind of wondering if that was the issue. Is it? I don't know. I thought I'd throw that out to you. And then I just wanted to point out to you what the timeline really was with Flynn. Flynn sent text to Kislyak on Christmas. Okay, it was Christmas. He reached out, wished him a Merry Christmas, and he offered condolences for the loss of 92 members of a Russian military choir killed in a plane crash. That was his purpose for sending them. Okay, that's why he contacted Kislyak, because there had been this plane crash and this was a courtesy call to send condolences for it. So he didn't call him, he just texted him, but still, that's what it was all about. Okay, and then on December 28th, Obama signed the executive order that imposed the sanctions, and the same day is the day Kislyak reached out to Flynn. So, notice this is Kislyak reaching out to Flynn, not Flynn reaching out to Kislyak. Did this event, the executive order, trigger Kislyak to do this? Did someone prompt him to reach out to Flynn on that particular day? And that's when the call occurred on the 28th. But again, if you go back here and you look at these, a lot of these requests came long before the 28th. I mean, look at them. A lot of them around the 16th. So something big was happening on the 16th, because look at these, all of these. What did Flynn do on the 16th? Well, it doesn't seem to say anything major here. Says nothing. But this is when they had high confidence that Russian intelligence agency hacked the DNC. Of course, we know, again, that's not true. And so anyway, I just thought I would show this to you. And then really the Russian sanctions weren't announced until the 29th. But with the executive order being signed, I would suppose that it was kind of official then. And Flynn probably knew from that, but maybe he didn't. It's possible that the executive order was signed without being really made too public. I'm not sure. So Flynn might not even have known about the sanctions until the next day. So I wanted to point that out to you, and I just found it and wanted to add it in while I was doing the editing. So anyway, back to the regularly scheduled video that I was in the process of. Also note that this does not include anything before the 2016 election. Wouldn't that be an interesting thing to have? I think they need to go back and ask for those documents as well, because I'll bet there were some unmasking requests that happened before the election. I would just bet it. Anyway, so you've got Samantha Powers, who, remember, was the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. What in the world should she be doing unmasking anybody? And then you have Clapper, and it just goes on. I mean, look at all these titles. U.S. ambassador to Italy and the Republic of San Marino. Why would he need to unmask Flynn's name? And that was before the Kislyak call. Why would they need to have any of that? So you see, they're not just unmasking the call, the Kislyak call. It was other stuff they were trying to get his name unmasked for. So it really is kind of interesting that they did all this. And, you know, you've got all the big suspects here, Brennan and Conlon and Secretary of the Treasury. Why were these people all needing to see Flynn's name? You gotta wonder. Acting Under Secretary of the Treasury, you just need to know. And of course, there's Comey, and then you've got some people whose names are redacted here. And then you've got just very interesting. Ambassador to Russia. I can almost understand that one. But as we go through, of course, when you get to the U.S. ambassador to Turkey, really, why would that one be connected at all? Chief of Staff to the President of the United States, and of course, Deputy Director of National Intelligence, and down here is the big one, Vice President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden. And look what date that was, the 12th of January of 2017. Keep that date in mind. So, look at this. Now, this is not Sarah Huckabee Sanders, okay? This is Sarah Huckabee. This is not the same person, okay? Just wanted you to know that. She's just kind of an average person. But she says, on January 12th, 2017, someone leaked General Michael Flynn's call to the Washington Post. That is a felony. Coincidentally, Joe Biden made an unmasked request of General Flynn on, wait for it, January 12th, 2017. Yep, and you saw that on the document. Right there it is, January 12th. Gotta think they're connected. They really are. And what does the vice president need to unmask anyone's name for? Really doesn't go with his job description, does it? I don't think so. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. And then this one says, regardless of party, this should horrify you. A judge resisting the prosecutorial conclusion a crime was manufactured, the interrogation unjustified and untethered to something lawful. For what gain? We pay his salary. My world is criminal justice, and I assure you, this isn't it. So then we go on. I've just got lots of these to share with you because everybody had an opinion on this today. And Techno Fog has a really good thread. In fact, I was going to actually put it out to you earlier today, but, life kind of got in the way and I had some other things I had to get done. So this one, I think, is a really good thread. But what it points out is that these amicus briefs, we've talked about that in the last video, that John Gleeson is who was named by Sullivan here. So it's a little hard to see it. Actually, I should have brought it up bigger, but it says it's ordered that this court exercises its inherent authority to appoint the Honorable John Gleeson as amicus curiae to present arguments in opposition to the government's motion to dismiss. Why? Why do they have to do that? I have no idea. I can't figure this. I watched a couple videos with Sidney Powell in them, and she's pretty flummoxed too about it, because why would you need to do this? The only reason that you might have an amicus curiae, from what I've been able to read, is if the person's counsel is totally incompetent. And Sidney Powell is not incompetent. She's doing an excellent job. So there's really no reason for this. But if you go through this thread, I thought he did a good job of, just talking about these things. So in this particular one, this is a huge thing because this John Gleeson once worked with and allegedly supervised Mueller prosecutor Andrew Weissman. Curious if Gleeson and Weissman have talked recently. Yeah, it's just very interesting that is the person he thinks should put together a case for prosecuting Flynn and for going on with it. It's crazy. This is just weird, all of this. But this one right here puts a little different spin on things. And this is kind of the opposite point of view, if you want to say it that way. And he talks about this minute order that was put in, which we've, is with the amicus curiae thing. And given the current posture of this case, the court anticipates that individuals and organizations will seek leave of the court to file amicus curiae briefs pursuant to Local Civil Rule 7.0. And then he goes on in a little bit of legal speak here and everything. Friend of the court does not represent the parties, but participates only for the benefit of the court. And then down here it says, an amicus brief should normally be allowed when a party is not represented competently or is not represented at all when the amicus has an interest in some other case that may be affected by the decision in the present case. And then he goes on and says, though not enough affected to entitle the amicus to intervene and become a party in the present case, or when the amicus has unique information or perspective that can help the court beyond the help that the lawyers for the parties are able to provide. Otherwise, leave to file an amicus curiae brief should be denied. And again, a lot of this stuff. And so when you go down here, in this one, as Judge Amy Berman Jackson has observed, while there may be individuals with an interest in this matter, a criminal proceeding is not a free-for-all. I like the way that he used her because she has been very anti-conservatives, that's for sure. And accordingly, at the appropriate time, the court will enter a scheduling order governing the submission of any amicus curiae briefs. And that was signed by Emmett G. Sullivan. All right. So Judge Sullivan is crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's and is setting the stage to rain down hellfire on the prosecutors in this trial. He'll hold a must-watch hearing, and Van Grack and company better wear asbestos. Now, this is where, like I said, he goes opposite of what a lot of people are saying on this. He says, the clown show trying to compare this case to the Stevens case. Remember this. Stevens was dead when his case was tossed. There was no threat of fallout with him. I kind of thought that Stevens was still alive when the case was thrown out, but I could be wrong on that. General Flynn is very much alive, so let it play out, and then if I'm wrong, I'll be the first to admit it. Also, Stevens was convicted by the W. Bush administration, and the case was tossed by Holder. Completely different scenarios. Okay, but this is what he says here. Okay, I've been bombarded with DMs and tweets telling me I'm out of my tree, out of my mind. They want to quote fear porn pundits and tweeters. So let me take my stand here and now, and we will see what happens in the end. But I will attempt to explain my position. So again, here's his position. On December 18th, 2018, at the general sentencing hearing that basically ended up triggering this extended delay in the Flynn case, ended up being the demise of Covington and opened the door to the general hiring Sidney Powell 5 months later. So let's look at that hearing. People love to harp on the whole Sullivan accused Flynn of treason. Actually, he didn't. He brought up a hypothetical and then forced Van Grack to actually defend against it on the record. Now remember, Van Grack was the DOJ's prosecution, the Mueller prosecutor, essentially. There are people saying that violated Rule 11, but I disagree. So let's review it. Here, starting on page 35 of the transcript, Sullivan ventures off into the unknown. I've color-coded it for emphasis. The pinks and purples are important. And he goes through and he shows you some different things with the different colors. Again, without doing a bunch of handstands, and I'm not going to show it to you, but you can go through. Let me go on with what he says here. At the very mention of the possibility that Flynn sold out his country, Van Grack is forced to defend Flynn, the person he's supposed to be prosecuting. Notice how slick that is. I personally think it's genius. Van Grack pushes back strongly at any suggestion of this. Sullivan takes the possibility of treason or the Logan Act for a full lap around the courtroom, and Van Grack has to knock it down multiple times, saying it was never a consideration. All the prosecution was seeking was the 1001 charge against Flynn, which is lying to the FBI. In my honest opinion, right there is where Sullivan opened the door to make the prosecution's case vulnerable to being tossed. As Andy McCarthy and others have said, in order for a 1001 charge to be viable, it has to be material in how it affects an ongoing criminal investigation. So with Van Grack making it plain that no other charges or investigations were affected, in other words, the Logan Act, treason, obstruction, collusion, etc., what is the basis to charge Flynn with 1001? None. Sullivan forced Van Grack to say it on the record and literally defend Flynn against the mere assumption of any other wrongdoing, even the extreme hypothetical hyperbole of Sullivan. After a short recess, Sullivan explained he was never accusing Flynn, just asking questions. Okay, pure genius. Covington lawyers sat there like a bump on a log and were ready to let their client get railroaded, and Sullivan forced the prosecution to defend the accused and blew up its own case. This triggered a long sentencing delay. Flynn fired Covington and hired my brilliant friend Sidney Powell. The rest is what you see now. The case blown up, and Sidney forced the DOJ to produce not only documents that clear Flynn, but implicated wrongdoing all the way to Barry's Oval Office. Pure genius. Now, in case there's any more of the BS political volleys from the swamp left in their bag of tricks, Sullivan invited all of them into the kill box. Come on down with your political BS amicus and be ready to defend it. Get your popcorn ready. Sidney has now filed a motion to strike, as a good defense attorney should. Now sit back and watch. They can file a stack of amicus briefs that is higher than the Capitol dome. It doesn't change the facts of the case. There are more moving parts to this than just a simple dismissal. This first amicus proposal has been filed. And there it is. And it says, in light of the court's forthcoming scheduling order governing the submission of any amicus curiae briefs, leave to file the submission by proposed amici curiae is denied. The clerk of the court is directed not to docket the filing submitted by proposed amici curiae, signed by Judge Emmett Sullivan. Well, it appears the amicus curiae Sullivan was seeking is appointing a retired judge, John Gleeson, to argue why Michael Flynn should not be held in contempt for perjury to support the DOJ's request to dismiss the case. Gleeson was a Reagan-appointed U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of New York, worked with Rudy Giuliani as the lead prosecutor in the murder and RICO convictions of John Gotti and Victor Orena, the bosses of the Gambino and Colombo families. So this is, like I said, it's a different perspective on this. Now for an even different perspective. This one is talking about Judge Emmett Sullivan likely committed reversible error in taking the guilty plea of General Michael Flynn. And so this one talks about that. Where is it? Section Rule 11 talks about that he violated the federal rules of criminal procedure and that he didn't really have, in his own mind, the judge's own mind, he didn't really have it nailed down that the reason the lying was bad was because it caused problems with for a material reason in, trying to obstruct something or to keep the FBI from getting to the root of something. And that's simply not true. It couldn't be applied to Flynn. So that's what this one is. It's a little kind of hard to follow sometimes, but it's there. And I'll leave the links down below so you can read them on your own if you want to. Well, this Mel Q, and I also want to thank Toasty for this because Toasty's the one who pointed me to this and tagged me. And so this person says, it looks like Judge Sullivan also helped run cover for Clinton's email investigation. And here it is from the WikiLeaks. Here it's blown up just a little bit. And I'm not so sure on this. It doesn't really seem like he's trying to get her off. It actually seemed like maybe he was trying to, set it up so that she might have to testify. But anyway, this is what it says. Judge Emmett Sullivan of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia laid out the ground rules for interviewing multiple State Department officials about the emails with an eye toward finishing the depositions in the weeks before the party nominating conventions. So Clinton herself may be forced to answer questions under oath, Sullivan said, though she is not yet being forced to take that step. So I don't know that that's necessarily letting her off. I don't know. I would have to know what the rules were that he set down. And it seems to me like a lot of the people got off and they got all kinds of protective deals and everything. So, immunity deals. So I don't know which he was on that. I don't know if he's owned or if he was really setting up the prosecutors and then whoever puts these amici curiae things in, for the case. I don't know. I don't know where the truth lies at this point. It's a little hard to tell. But I'm giving you both sides so you can see it all and make your own mind up. Just to remind you, though, that Watergate prosecutors request to file opinion in Flynn's case. So why would Watergate prosecutors want to do that? 16 former Watergate prosecutors this week asked to file a friend of the court, which is an amicus curiae, brief weighing in on the case of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Why? It says the Watergate prosecutors are uniquely suited to help ensure a fair presentation of the issues raised by the government's motion to dismiss the case, the group's request states. Flynn's attorneys oppose the request, of course. I really do not know why they would have any stake in this, although I'm pretty sure I don't know exactly what Watergate was really about. I know what it was about on the surface. I know what narrative we've been sold, but I question what it was truly about. So I'm kind of wondering if there was some connection. I don't know. Why would this be part of it? That just kind of struck me as strange, but I wanted to share it with you. And then, of course, Alan Dershowitz is not real happy about it. If this judge has the gall to not throw this out, he ought to be impeached. So, it just, everybody's got an opinion. It's so many things going back and forth. And like I said, I spent the whole day kind of reading on him, trying to figure out which way it's going. I don't know. The thing is, I thought Emmett Sullivan was a fairly decent guy because of what he did in the Ted Stevens case. And I saw a video tonight of Sidney Powell on Lou Dobbs, and she was talking about it. She thought so too, that he was fairly decent. And then he turns around and does this. So she's puzzled as to his behavior. It doesn't seem consistent with other things, that he's ruled, because he was really big on Brady evidence, but he's been very wishy-washy on it in this case. So is he owned by somebody? I'm kind of thinking that's what the case is. Or is this a plan to, expose more of these deep state people? I don't know what the case is. Again, I'm giving you the information. You can make up your own mind, because I'm just not sure right now where it's standing. I lean towards him being blackmailed in some way. Somebody's got something on him, but I'm not saying it definitively at this point. He is in photos with some of the other questionable judges that have been in the news, like Contreras and a few others. So I don't know. I really don't. Anyway, this is a call out from the researchers that if you happen to be somebody who is, a legal specialist, if you are a paralegal, or you happen to be a lawyer, maybe you would like to file an amicus curiae brief. I don't know. It would be nice, supporting Flynn being released and dismissed, having all the case against him dismissed. So I'll leave the link down below if you want to read that. And then this was something that came up, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Judicial Watch FOIA request generates a letter response. Where did the Susan Rice unmasking logs go? They were illegally removed from their place of custody and sent to the Barack Obama Presidential Library and sealed for 5 years. And so here's the letter that was sent back, and it just says, this letter acknowledges receipt of your request of April 4th, 2017. Documents from the Obama administration have been transferred to the Barack Obama Presidential Library. You may send your request to the Obama Library. However, you should be aware that under the Presidential Records Act, presidential records remain closed to the public for 5 years after an administration has left office. Okay, well, if you recall, Barack Obama changed that because he changed it to 12 years as the period. Yeah. Now, with everything we're seeing come out right now, is it any surprise he wanted him sealed for 12 years? Oh, he sure did not want President Trump to get his hands on him. Oh no. Now, this was done back in on July 26, 2016. So this was before, things got really hot and before Trump, was elected. But I thought it was just very interesting here that things were heating up at this point, because I believe it was around the 4th of July that Hillary Clinton was, quote, interviewed. I put air quotes around that because she wasn't technically, it was one of those, hey, you didn't do anything wrong, did you? And she went, no. I'm pretty sure that's about what it was, because they didn't record it, The FBI really has to come into this century, because there's no reason why they should not have recording devices with them when they are interviewing people. They should have everything on record. But, of course, they don't want to do that. Anyway, let's go on, because there's more. Last Refuge here has this about prepare to discover that Michael Flynn was not unmasked, but everybody else was. And this is something that I've wondered for a while, if Flynn was really the direct target, so he was not unmasked, because I think they had a FISA on him. Now, in Horowitz's report that came out in December, it said that there were 4 people that were being investigated. Now, it didn't say there were FISAs on all 4 of them, but I do think that probably there was a FISA on Flynn and that he wasn't unmasked. But then again, when I see the list of unmasking requests, I don't know. So it could be that they did a FISA after to cover their butts for what they did before. So I'm not sure, but this was an interesting article here that is what they're talking about. So similar to it, and that's what he says here. But then he goes down here. He has this video here of Graham questioning Admiral Rogers. And he says, please note the part where Admiral Rogers notes the FBI would likely gather more incidental collection. And as a consequence, unmaskings. So let me play that for you.
Are you aware of any incidental collection on 2016 candidates on both sides of the aisle?
I'm not going to get into the specifics in an unclassified forum about collection writ large, but I will say we certainly acknowledge that incidental collection occurs, but we also have a very strict process for
Can we build that out a bit?
What we do with that? Yes, sir.
The only way you can actually collect on an American citizen inside the country is to have a FISA warrant.
And a FISA warrant, yes, sir.
Or if an American citizen is incidentally in a conversation with somebody you're already following.
Yes, sir.
Unmasking is a request to your organization. I want to know who American citizen 1 was.
Yes, sir.
You get, how many of those requests did you get in 2016?
I think we've publicly acknowledged some
around 2,000.
Just 2,000. I think it's 1,900.
How many people can request the unmasking of American citizens?
If you're an authorized recipient of the intelligence, we use 2 criteria. Number 1, the requester must be asking this in the execution of their official duties. It can't be something that would be neat to know. It's number 1 has to be in the execution of their official duties. Number 2, the revealing of the U.S. person has to provide context and greater value for the intelligence. Again, it just can't be, I'm just curious.
I got you. So within our government, are there 10 people, 10 groups that can do this, 20?
In terms of authorizing the unmasking?
Yeah, no, to make the request.
No, it's broader than that. If you are on the distribution, if you're on the authorized distribution for our intelligence reporting, you can ask. Doesn't mean it gets approved, but you can ask.
Is the National Security Director one of those? I mean, the
National Security Advisor, yes,
yeah.
sir. They're normally on the distribution for most, not all, but for
Is there a
many
record
of our
of every request made?
Yes.
So there's a record of who made the request to unmask the conversation involving the American citizen.
Yes, sir.
There's a record of whether or not you granted it.
Yes, sir.
Is there a record of what the person did with the information once they got it?
No. There's also a record of the basis of, so why did we say yes? We remind every individual, if I could, once we unmask, once we authorize an unmasking, we authorize the unmasking only to that individual. What do I mean by that? So if we unmask a report that went to a particular individual, we don't unmask the report for everyone who got that report. Only the individual that we
And they're
approved.
told not to share it with
They are
other people.
specifically told a reminder. This doesn't
let's-
change the classification. Yes, sir.
General Flynn was caught up in a conversation with a Russian ambassador. You're familiar with that story in the
I'm
press?
familiar with the story. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Assuming he did not have a FISA warrant allowing us to collect on him, it would be a case of incidental collection following the Russian ambassador. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We would know how that conversation was revealed and to who it was revealed through the request of your agency.
If we unmasked and it was based on an NSA report.
Okay,
I
let's
also
say-
highlight, remember, NSA won't be the only agency
No, I
that
got you.
potentially could have gotten the conversation. Yes, sir.
Got you, but you're the primary one, right?
I would argue, again, it depends. If you look at Title I warrants for his FBI, it's
I'm not talking about warrants. I'm talking about
incidental. Still, I would argue there's probably a greater potential on the FBI side than NSA, just in terms of collection.
of incidental collection.
Incidental with U.S. persons.
Okay, so we could either ask the FBI or you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So somebody took that information that we gained through collection with Flynn and gave it to the Washington Post.
Somehow it got to the media. That's clearly.
That is a crime.
And that's a leak, and that is illegal. Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you concerned about people taking the law in their own hands, no matter how noble they think the event may be?
Oh, yes, sir, which is why I've gone to my workforce in writing and said, let's make sure we understand what the professional ethos of our organization is. We do not, if I could finish, sir, we do not engage in this behavior. And if I catch you engaging in this behavior, I will hold you criminally liable and you have no place in this organization.
Mr. Chairman, I beg for 30 additional sections.
Sure.
Okay, the bottom line here, it is possible for the Congress to find out who requests unmasking of American citizens, who that information was given to, and that is possible for us to know.
On the NSA side, and that's part of the ongoing investigation with the primary oversight committees that we're going through right now.
Okay. Do you know if Susan Rice ever asked for an American citizen to be unmasked?
I'd have to pull the data, sir. I apologize.
Thank you.
So I'm going to link to the actual video here so you can get that off of YouTube. It's under Lindsey Graham's account here. I wanted to show you that because I thought it was very interesting when he was talking about the unmaskings and everything. It is possible that Flynn was unmasked, but it's also possible maybe that there was a FISA on him. So I know they were investigating him. Was there a FISA? I don't know. I suspect there was. And then Samantha Power, of course, claimed she never tried to unmask Michael Flynn, but the record shows she unmasked him 7 times. Or she requested to have him unmasked 7 times. Because that list is just a list of their requests. It's not necessarily that they were unmasked each time. So anyway, I thought I'd point that out to you because everything that's coming out now is starting to show how much they have lied. They have been lying to us over and over and over again. Well, Devin Nunes says that criminal referrals are coming out for the Mueller team. Now notice, he says Mueller team. That means probably Van Grack and maybe Weissman and some of the others. And so he says here we're doing a large criminal referral. Not a small one, but a large criminal referral on the Mueller dossier team that put together a fraudulent report. When he says the dossier, Mueller dossier, that's the Mueller report, okay? That knew there was no collusion the day that Mueller walked in the door. So they are probably putting together anybody who was part of that because it was all a pack of lies. And people like Devin Nunes have known it. If you read it, it was kind of like if you were getting your ex to talk about you. You know, it was just really negative, and there was nothing positive in it. Any exculpatory evidence was left out. It goes through and it doesn't even mention any of it, but it all exists, and it was not included in it. So it definitely was a fraudulent report. It was meant to deceive the American people. And so this was another one that I thought was kind of telling because the exact same criminal gang that ran Enron task force ran Obama's deep state, Hillary, and Mueller investigations. So just a reminder, yes, these were the same people. And this is why Sidney Powell is going to go after them. She's been trying. She tried to get them back then, but she couldn't. Because there were too many people in the deep state who were protecting them. But that's not the case now. So go for it, Sydney. Get them. I hope she takes them all down. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is something kind of stunning, actually, because it was on Yahoo News. And it says, guess what? It's not a conspiracy theory. So those sharing hashtag Obamagate on Twitter would do best to avoid the hysterics we saw from the Russia collusion believers, but they have no reason to ignore the mounting evidence that suggests the Obama administration engaged in serious corruption. So, wow, I was really surprised to see that on Yahoo. Wow, it's even getting out there. So people are starting to wake up. They're starting to see the truth. The truth is getting out there. It may not be quite as fast as we all want it to be, but it's getting there. So hang on, folks. We're going to see some arrests pretty soon. It's going to happen this time. They're not getting off. Nobody's going to walk away from this. So anyway, that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.